Hey, what's up? This is David DeVore, and I've got Bob Ullery here. This is Pixels and Protocol, and we're just sort of taking the stuff that we're working on at Props and Mesh and breaking it down for the week, talking about things that we're excited about and that we're working on. And it is Sunday morning, so seems like a good time to wake up, drink some coffee, look back at what we've been doing, and maybe look forward a little bit into what's coming. So first thing on deck here, we've been working on Restless for, I don't know, almost 2 years, maybe a year and a half. Like it's been a while. We've done a ton with them, and they just launched their creator portal, which is a UGC, user generated content creator portal. And it's awesome. We've been sort of deep in the sauce with them on this portal, and so wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge how awesome it is. And I'm going to hand it off here to Bob, and Bob, maybe you can just break down what it is, how it works, and give us a quick overview. Let me go ahead and stop sharing, and you can bring it up.
Yeah, sure thing. Let me start there. There we go. So a little backstory, as you mentioned, we've been working with Restless for a while, I think coming up on 2 years, wonderful partner, and have led us to a lot of interesting observations and solves in Web3, and also like bridging the gap between Web3 ownership and on-chain data to real utility as applied to assets, specifically gaming. Restless sort of intersects between gaming and fashion, founded by Charlie Cohen, who has made a name for herself in the fashion space, and also a visionary when it comes to technology and early adoption around things. And so they're blending those worlds together. And the ultimate vision is a user-generated platform where folks can create their own game assets, partly for flex, so you look cool playing the games you love. And then also from a commerce perspective, there's millions, if not billions, of creators on the planet, or shortly will be at scale. How do we provide tooling for them to, sort of deploy their creativity to the world and be incentivized and rewarded for that work as they build really great things? We see that model permeating everywhere, specifically around social media and the next billion content creators. It's going to look a little different than we realize in a few years, and this is an extension of that concept. This is actually the second version of the Restless UGC portal. Our initial, call it beta, was last year, and that was built on Ethereum L1 and sort of a slim test around what do creators actually want? What are they thinking about? How do we apply tooling to create value there? This version here, a year later, is taking those learnings and taking the next step. So you might call this an alpha, though it is entirely focused on UGC. We'll talk a little bit about the next iteration of this, which is a monster in comparison in terms of its functionality, and I think staying power as a protocol level foundation for UGC composable, compatible assets that truly can sort of capture the vision of on-chain assets and this notion of permissionless ownership and cross-platform compatibility. It's really very interesting. So we can dig into all that. Before we do, I'll just show you kind of a brief high level in 30 seconds of what this does today. Again, sort of beta level. So I enter my portal. I can go ahead and create a new creation. Part of Restless special sauce, of course, is their fashion expertise. And so what they're doing, and along with other creators at sort of the base layer, is creating the foundational wearables themselves that creators can then customize and take to market. So we launched this on Thursday of last week, so just 3-4 days old. And today we support puffer jackets, hoodies, and pants. And so as a creator, I can come in and say, I want to create a new puffer jacket. I can select from my glyphs being pieces of artwork that I want to attach to the actual garment itself. And so I've uploaded the Props logo and the Restless logo, and then just also a black image in case I don't want to use all the slots on the garment. So I go in move forward in the wizard. That'll load up here in a second. And I'm creating that puffer jacket. I'll zoom in. The developers and creators that Restless has around the assets themselves are world class and have worked across many video game titles that you probably know and love. And that really sort of comes to the forefront when you interact with these models. Like you can see the fabric actually sort of having some physical properties to it with the sway and just the texture detail and so on. So that's a lot of R&D over the last 2 years that probably doesn't get paid attention to, but just the notion of quality around the assets themselves or behind the scenes work that the Restless team has been investing in heavily and really driving forward in terms of the quality of these assets. Now, from a creator perspective, I'll go ahead and start to customize this. So maybe that front patch, let's do the body panel. This is kind of the big whole fabric across the entire jacket. And what I've applied is my props logo glyph that you saw on the previous page. I can scale it up and down and kind of, center it, rotate it how I want. And so I got props going down the side of this jacket, pretty rad. So on and so forth. Every garment has a number of slots, and you can kind of see these placeholders here, this black patch on the right arm. Let's find that. Arm patch right, boom, props logo. So you can see how we made it very easy for creators to sort of create the accoutrements that might be put onto a garment and just rapidly deploy these assets to market. And then from here, what we would do after we save is apply the utility. So this is the partner channel essentially, and the first partner is Union Avatars. They're sort of providing the cross-platform compatibility layer. So as a creator create a garment, it automatically integrates with Union Avatars, making it compatible with a large number of platforms, from spatial to Decentraland and so on. So that's cool. We're excited by that. Last step here is you have to submit for approval today in UGC, so that the Restless team can validate that there's no hate speech or anything applied to it before they approve it. Once approved, the creator then can actually deploy this as a token in the broader Restless collection self-serve, which is amazing.
What's the just real quick? What's the contracts look like? What's the sort of mechanics and standards on the Web3 side?
Yeah. In this UGC beta, this is an ERC 1155, partly because we're trying to replicate a more traditional commerce model. So as a creator, I created this puffer jacket. I could sell just one of them. Likely, I want to sell many of them. And so single token design, but many people could own one or more of these things. A little more complex than that in terms of on-chain. There's the ERC 1155, and then there's a couple supporting contracts around that to do things like token management, access control, things like that, as well as dynamic royalties. I think one of the interesting things here is the notion of supporting a economy. And to do that, you have to incentivize and reward the creators and participants accordingly. Creators are going to share in the top line revenue within a marketplace as these wares get sold. And the creator, along with Restless, share the royalty for marketplaces that sell these and enforce and honor royalties as well. So theoretically, a long tail of value as folks, so long as the quality is high and people want to use these wearables, and theoretically that creator will continue to earn on that in perpetuity, which is pretty amazing. From the next generation that I mentioned, kind of teased before, it's built on a couple of very interesting EVMs, ERCs. So that new model is going to be kind of a confluence of 3 different approaches. The first is multi-asset functionality, which is an ERC 5773. This notion that this puffer jacket, as an example, might have different formats for different platforms. So one platform might require it as a GLB, one might require an FBX. Maybe a platform doesn't even allow for 3D assets. How do we transform it into a 2D asset that platform can use? Multi-asset 5773 allows for you to own one token, but also all of its various representations, and serve that representation based on the requesting platform in the format that it requires. And that's pretty cool. They're also equipable. So that's a ERC 6220. And what that means is I could equip new elements onto the base asset. I think a better use case there is if you think about games themselves, maybe use like a Call of Duty as an example here. I've got a gun. Let's say it's a sniper rifle, but we know in the game I can actually upgrade these assets. So maybe my sniper rifle has a scope on it. It's a specific type of scope that I've earned or purchased. That scope is equipable onto the base asset, which is a gun, right? And so on and so forth. I might be able to equip many different elements onto that base weapon, and therefore increasing the value of it and also its utility, because it's more powerful than the default gun that you get in the game. But I've grinded and I've done the things I need to do to upgrade this thing and increase its value. And then the third is a nestable, which is a ERC 7401. And what that means is a tree hierarchy of this relationship of multi-asset and equipable. So back to the gun example, I've got the gun, that's my multi-asset, it's equipable. I've equipped the scope, which is its own token and can be de-equipped and sold or transferred in its own right. And then nestability, I might have on that scope a blue laser dot instead of a red laser dot. And so now we have a 3-layer hierarchy: the gun, the scope, and the blue dot. And so that's the notion of nestability. What's cool about this new model is, again, always with the focus of rewarding the creator with the monetary value that they are in fact responsible for. And so when you, let's say, sell your gun, it has a hierarchy of different elements that might have been created by many different creators. We've created an approach to sort of account for that. If I sold you my gun for, let's say, $100, I may have 10 different creator elements equipped on it. We do the math and the modeling to essentially disseminate that, in this case, a royalty out across those creators based on their sort of pro rata equipped assets on that sort of base asset. All to say, the onus is not on the owner to then break these things apart to sell each valuable piece individually. They can sell the one asset, and the protocol itself on chain takes care of disseminating the value across all the creators that were a part of that asset, which I just think is pretty profound.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And then the very last bit I'll touch on is we're going to deploy the new framework on layer 0. Layer 0 being sort of a cross-chain aggregation bridge protocol, for lack of a better descriptor. If you brought up their website, they'd probably state it more elegantly. But what that does is it's going to unlock the ability for these assets to be portable across 80 different EVM chains. And so the user could say, hey, I've minted this thing on base, but this new game over here that hasn't yet been invented, let's say it comes out a year from now, they're on the Fuel network, or they are on Chromia, whatever it might be. As a user, I have full autonomy to just move that asset over to that chain in order to use it as in the way I want to.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's interesting. I've got a bunch of, we were talking about earlier, I've got a bunch of Twitch streamers at my house. I was actually talking about this last night with them. And they're all traditional gamers. So they're Twitch streaming, Call of Duty and whatnot. And gamers aren't really in love with NFTs. I mean, it has the culture around gaming traditionally has a lot of pushback around tokens and NFTs and crypto and whatnot. But when it's interesting, like once I started talking about sort of cross game assets, then they got it. They're like, oh, right, okay. So I want to take this gun out of Call of Duty and take it over into another game, and that actually made them pretty excited. So it's interesting. And the other thing that I think that where Charlie and Ben and the folks at Restless are onto something is that what we're seeing is a lot of brands are struggling to like figure out how do we engage the like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, right? Like they are, they're banner blind. They are not hanging out inside of our traditional social channels. They're sort of, hanging out in very niche communities, and all of their communication happens in games, right? I mean, they're hanging out all day long or all night, and vibing with their friends inside of games. So where Charlie and Ben, I think, are really is smart is like, hey, how can we bring user generated content for a brand into a game, so that way a logo for a brand or fashion for a brand can now just sort of run around with me. And I think that they're onto something that's going to be huge. So super excited to see where this goes.
And it's that is interesting. I don't want to go too deep, but this notion of like misinformation and disinformation sort of swaying the zeitgeist in any particular moment. NFTs behoove gamers more than they realize. And so I feel like there's been a bit of conditioning for folks to be anti-NFT.
Right.
What they fail to realize is NFT is technology. It just means that thing is yours and there's no copy of it if it's a non-fungible token. That's good. That's a good thing. It creates this new layer beneath the platform itself. Whereas before it was a hub and spoke, you've got, let's say, Minecraft in the middle, right? And a user over here, and they've built this really cool thing. Maybe it's this massive fortress in Minecraft. There's no way for me to go give that to my son, who's also a Minecraft player. Somehow Minecraft, Mojang would have to build a mechanism for me to sort of componentize that big fortress I made, give it to them in the center, and then somehow allow for my son to come and get this thing in his account. Really what we're talking about is from my ability to just take that thing and just give it to him directly. There's no negative consequence here. This is an evolution. This is actually innovation that creates value for the gamer, not just from the cross-platform composability side, but from the notion of as you earn and evolve assets in game, there's no winner today in trad gaming. The platform gets bigger. They earn value from your grind. You get some dopamine because you achieve this next digital badge on your profile, but no real actual tangible value. Meanwhile, if you think back to like Counter-Strike and all the games that we played growing up, the precedence is there for value attachment to assets in game. There are gun skins that have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars in trad games, mostly by way of selling your account login so that people can go get this thing, which doesn't work at scale at all.
Right.
So I would challenge gamers to take another look at this. It's not just game assets. It's not just individual pieces of art. Your mortgage, your titles, your deeds, your insurance policies, your equities, your bonds, and so on. They will all be tokenized within the next year or two. It's
already happening.
That's right.
I mean, was it California? I mean, literally, like I saw in the last week, California is putting like millions of car titles on chain, right, to fight fraud, right?
And state IDs,
so it's
state IDs, which is incredible. All you need is your phone now. You need no plastic ID card with you.
Yeah, and so it's just technology, right? And it's just a better technology for a lot of things. And so, like all technologies, it's just going to seep into wherever it is a better unlock than what was there before. So yeah, car titles, mortgages, like all this stuff that is like, prone to lots of complexity can really be simplified with the blockchain. So
yeah,
that's awesome. So cool. I want to like jump over. Let's talk about. You mentioned Fuel. Let's talk about Fuel a little bit because we're sort of deep in the sauce with Fuel. And for those who aren't familiar with Fuel, Fuel is a network. And if you would, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. I'm gonna share this SDK that we've been working on. And awesome, thank you. So our partner Calvin has been working on this. So for those who aren't familiar with Fuel, Fuel is a really interesting network, blockchain network, and they have we got a grant from them and they are launching, I think, DomainNet here in September. And so we got a grant to help sort of bring a launch platform as well as bring an SDK, right? So Calvin has been deep in the sauce working on this SDK. And there's some really, it really led to the nice thing when we sort of work at this level is like we're deep into the protocol, right? And so what's fun about that is that we get to make, deep philosophical decisions about how this could work, because since it's sort of on the SDK and on the protocol level, it's going to be enshrined there forever. And especially when you're working on an SDK that is for other builders, you want it to be elegant, you want it to be fast, you want it to be there for a long time and valuable to other builders. So we did some pretty interesting things with this SDK that I'm excited about. First of all, the code is just super elegant. It's not quite ready yet. So the documentation is there. We're sort of in private review with the Fuel team right now on the SDK. And there's a bunch of future places that we're going to go with it. But the code itself and the ability to deploy the code is just super elegant, and that's just a testament to Calvin and the way that he works. But the other thing is that we really went deep on like, okay, well, what's the incentive layer here? And one of the things that we found, as you looked across a lot of different protocols, is like there's incentives for artists, there's incentives for marketplaces, there's a lot of incentives, but rarely is there actually an incentive for the builder, meaning like the developer who is coming to the scene to build decentralized application or to build something for the world at large. And we're like, let's just start at the beginning and really incentivize builders around this thing. So there's a ton of flexibility for the builder to control a fee for themselves. These are protocol fees. So this is like, don't think about the actual sale, but actually, take a small piece of transaction on a fee level that gets combined with gas. And what's fun with these sort of highly efficient blockchains is like, whereas on layer one, gas can be fairly expensive, like, 50 to hundreds of dollars sometimes, just on the gas side. So with these really efficient both layer twos as well as layer ones, those gas fees go slim, which really leaves more room for more traditional fee structures, right? And without feeling like we're butting up against already a large expensive gas fee. So we've got it allows the incentive layer here allows them to bake in fees for themselves, but also allows for things like affiliates, things like tipping, things like revenue sharing. All of that is sort of built into the protocol level. And so we're just really excited to start to get this out and see how builders take it to the next level. I am hoping that, August 11th, I think I'm hoping that we have builders on it here in the next couple of weeks. By September 1st, we would love to start to see stuff out in the wild and people building on it and getting feedback. So we've got right now just sort of day zero, we're going to have a concept of additions. We'll also have the ability for, for somebody to mint an addition. And then also the ability for collections, right? So that is day zero. And then we're also thinking hard future considerations. We would love to really unlock royalty enforcement. We feel like that's a piece that is missing on a lot of chains, as we've seen with what we've seen with OpenSea or Blur or others. So we'd love actually a blockchain that would both facilitate royalty enforcement for creators, but also enforce it, meaning like not be able to transfer assets without that fee being paid. We're moving, auction support, a lot of things that you guys might expect. ERC 6551 sort of equivalent standards, or 6059 equivalent standards, revenue splitting protocols, credit card checkout, some of those other things. So we're super excited to sort of roll this out over the next couple weeks. So keep an eye on that. Next thing, so let's talk about remote control. So if anybody who's been following us for the past month or so knows that we've been deep into it with our partner Super Chief. One of the really cool things that we did, and the contest has ended now. We're right now gearing up for the next one, and there's sort of two big changes that are coming, or not changes. One is we're thinking about remote control as a multiple open calls happening at once. So rather than just, hey, here's one contest and then we're out, but basically, how do we make this an evergreen platform where there are opportunities sort of continuously rolling? We've got a ton in the pipeline that you guys will be hearing announcements from Super Chief and us over the next couple of weeks. But the big news is last run was in New York. Next run is in Japan, in Tokyo. In addition to the billboards, there's also some really fun additional surprises. I'm not going to blow the announcement right now, but that I think creators are going to get really excited about. The other thing that we did on a technical level that is really fun here is this batch mint. And so what that allows us to do is take somebody like Sendrock. So Sendrock was one of our sponsors, curator, awesome advocate of creators and art in the space. And what we can do now is what you see under Sendrock's page, you'll see, gosh, he has like 145 pieces of art, and they're all amazing. I mean, like literally, this page is like just miles of discovery, and you could just spend hours here just like going deep on each one. We realized that wouldn't it be awesome if I could just collect everything that Sendrock has curated? So we have this batch mint option, and what it'll do is it will basically allow me to get like Sendrock's whole collection. This batch mint also works on categories, or it also worked for all of the winners. And so it's just a really, one transaction, get them all, and really is really a sweet little feature. So more to come on that. The other thing that we found and I'm super excited about, and I'm working on, is like, and we've seen this, we sort of touched on this with Restless and sort of the UGC play and whatnot. This new world of consumers, right? The Gen Z, Gen Alpha, we're seeing sort of a seismic shift in advertisers and how advertisers and how marketers and how brands reach this demographic. And what that also means is that it's really challenging. It's really challenging brands to, go deep on new tricks that they might not have ever used before. So all of a sudden, things like gamification, 3D, motion, art, right? All that stuff is now cool in a way that it was not cool even 5 years ago, right? And so you're starting to see brands and user-generated content, right? And influencers. All of this is like a whole new world that brands are starting to dip their toe into. So we have on remote control, we have we like 500 artists, 1,000 unique creations. 14,000 pieces were collected. And what we realized is, oh my gosh, this is a treasure trove for brands. And what I mean by that is, like, a lot of brands are boring. Like, they don't know how to be cool. Like, they kind of need the creativity that these artists are bringing to the scene. So one of the things that we've been working on is this concept of a creative brief. So what the creative brief is like, we're basically we're taking we're taking the winners, we're putting together a lookbook, and we're going to take this lookbook and we're going to pitch it to brands, right? So we have relationships at Fox, we have relationships at Mattel, we have relationships at Universal Music Group, Warner Music Group, et cetera, et cetera. And, Under Armour, eBay, dozens and dozens of brands we've worked with these sort of creative teams. And what we find is that on one side you have the brands, they need to be cool. On the other side you have all these creatives and artists, they are cool, but they don't know how to reach brands. Like if they have a piece of IP or something they've done, like how do you get in front of somebody like Disney, right? So that's what we're working on with Creative Brief. And so I'm excited just to sort of show this off just briefly. And you'll see, so what we've been doing with I don't know whether you hear that or not, but we've basically been putting together this lookbook of the winners with just a quick overview, and this will then be the basis for what we send off to brands and start pitching brands. And ideally, what you're going to hear from us here in a couple of weeks is like, oh my gosh, like here's a brand they picked up, and we're doing a partnership with this creator soon. And to whether it's on social content, whether it's an ad, whether it's a music video, it all remains to be seen. We just think that there's something really special about taking the creator and taking the brand, putting them together and see what sticks. And we feel like we're excited because we have those relationships to make that happen. So the next thing that I want to crack open is, and I'm going to hand this back over to you, Bob. Vector databases, and what else are we doing with this art and this creative and from a discovery perspective. So let me stop sharing. I know you got something sort of nerdy to crack open for us, and let's talk about Vector.
Yeah, sure. So part of the calculus of remote control was all about discovery, and you've got over 500 creators in that initial launch, about 1,000 different pieces of art. There's not a whole lot of crossover between pieces of art. They're so subjective, and if you gave somebody a discovery experience to help them find, in this case, art that they want to collect, sort of relegated to the way the creator themselves might classify that art. So think about things like tags, right? I created this art. It's a picture of a bicycle, so a tag would be bicycle, beach, just whatever sort of generally describes that. We do and could apply AI to sort of figure out what those keywords could be. That's super valuable. So there is value in the sense of a traditional search filter mechanism of like, show me all the stuff with bikes in it. But that's sort of self-classifying, and yeah, everything's going to have a bike in it, but maybe my living room is green. I'm looking for art that would look really good in this room. And so it's not just bikes. I'm really looking for an aesthetic similarity between these things I might purchase and put on the wall. And so that's where vectorization comes in, specifically embeddings. This notion that we can take a graphic or a video, so on, and quote vectorize it, which really means running it through some mechanisms, one being like clip as an example that could describe the image to us, and not just in words, but in features. And so what that boils down to is take an image, and on the output of this process, we're left with a matrix, a vector. And a vector is really just a gigantic multi-dimensional array of positions in 3D space. I'll show you just a quick example of what that looks like, but not to get too nerdy. So these are our embeddings for each of the tokens within the collection, sorted by ID. And so if you looked at the embedding for token 1 here, a human would not be able to really discern what this means, right? Again, it's a point cloud of sorts, right? It's positional in 3D space, but what that unlocks is, if I'm looking at token 1, I can traverse that 3D space, i.e. props can, through tooling, and show you all the other art that's close by it in that 3D space, which means aesthetically similar. And so we're excited about that because it unlocks this whole new level of discovery with actual real utility. Like collecting art is fun, right? And I'm happy to go through all 1,000 pieces and be like, I love this, I love this, I want this, I want this. When you go up a level and think of utility and value, there's a a wide swath of use cases of why people choose different design assets that they want to put in their home or in their office or whatever. And usually they match or they fit a theme, right? I think back to like the Salesforce offices were some of my favorites, right? Very sort of nature driven vibe and aesthetics. Like, how do we go find other things that fit this aesthetic without having to pour like countless hours of just exploring the world for these things in markets, right? So that's really what this unlocks is, and you'll see in round two, this notion of a new visualization level of discovery. I love these things that I've collected. Here's like 10 more that actually fit that theme or vibe. So we think it just ups the game in terms of value back to the collector themselves. Certainly business value there to drive additional conversion and top line. So we're excited by that. We baited that last round. We didn't deploy it to the UI, but from a data perspective on the back end, we were thinking about that all the way. And so we're left with this this capability now to implement in round two, which we're excited about.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so it's, we have right now, we have categories, right? Those are self-selected categories. When a creator submits a piece of art, they can select, hey, is this photography or is this, motion or whatnot, which is good. I mean, that's the traditional way of discovery, right? So it's just categorization. What we're getting to is where we'll be able to look at the art and programmatically with some AI and inside of this sort of vector array, and the machine will be able to say, oh, this is glitch, this is photography, this is motion, this is AI. And so if I come in, then I can very quickly find all of the things, even if the creator didn't self-categorize it, right? I also think I'm excited specifically about the hook between the creative brief, right? And so and when you think about, there's definitely collectors, right, who are looking for specific type of stuff. But when we think about that and we think about the creative brief and we think about, well, what does a discovery engine look like for a brand who's trying to find a certain type of illustrator or a certain aesthetic of photographer or a certain, to go with their brand, because they already have brand guidelines. They already have some thoughts of like, what is the ad campaign that they're looking to do? And it really starts to break open. A better discovery mechanism than just the old categories, right? And it really allows us to also allow discovery to be really big and wide. It's not just sort of like, hey, here's 10 categories. It's literally unlimited based on what am I'm looking for greens, I'm looking for something that has a forest in it, right? And for discovery to be more to be natural language and not just specific categories. So that way I can type in what I'm looking for. It's going to bring that back. So cool. Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's super exciting. I'm excited to sort of see that come into the next version of remote control and where we go with it. So before we wrap up, one of the things that we've been after and looking hard at is grants and initiatives across the space. I mean, at this point, I'm actually looking at this database of grants that we've been researching, and they're amazing. It's interesting when you start to go deep on what grants are out there and what people are looking for. And a lot of these are networks, protocols, blockchains, some AI, and just thrilled to sort of see what people are asking for. I mean, there's Stellar, there's VeChain, there's Filecoin, there's Affinity, there's Provenance, there's Polygon. I mean, and I think that categorically things start to fall into obviously infrastructure, but more and more there's like DeFi games out there. There's community, there's and social fi, and so we're sort of going through this stuff. And so if anybody out there knows of interesting grants or opportunities that are looking for builders, give us a holler. Like we'd love to, we love this stuff. It's probably like sort of building on the bleeding edge of stuff that doesn't exist in the world is what we wake up to do. So if anybody is aware of grants or opportunities that they're looking for builders, we'd be happy to talk to them and tell them about us. The other thing that I'm super excited about, and it's what, August 11th. Coincidentally, it was just 11/11/11 while we were on this on this podcast, which was a moment. The other thing that we're looking at is like we're looking hard at events around the end of the year, right? So we're looking hard at Seoul, right? So crypto summit in Seoul is in September. We've got a bunch of digital assets week in Singapore. There's ETH Toronto. There's blockchain life in Dubai. There's stablecoin summit in Singapore. Has a lot going on. Like it's like I just want to like set up camp in Singapore. Then yeah. For sure. Yeah, that is amazing. And then there's ETH Miami, there's Bitcoin Amsterdam, like let's go. There's it's what else? My goodness. So there's going to be Web3 Summit. This is in there's the Web3 Summit in Berlin is coming up here on the 19th. I don't think we're going to be able to make that one, but and then there's Art Basel Miami in December. There's going to be Marfa here in the fall as well. So again, we're sort of putting our eyes on events that we want to sponsor, that we want to be at, that we want to have presence at. We're looking at hackathons. If people have something that you think that makes sense, let us know. We also have the ability to bring our partner Super Chief and actually do full on parties or installations for events and showcases and actually really turn up the heat in terms of awareness or in terms of showcasing and so yeah, so just super excited about both events and grants. And if people have anything, give us a holler. We'd love to take a look. And that's what I got, man. It's a lot. We've been busy. No change. I mean, that was just that's pretty much just a week. And that's even just the stuff that we're talking about. That's not even the stuff that is behind the velvet rope. So I hope everybody has a great Sunday. Enjoy it. It's beautiful here in the Midwest. It's finally cooled down, and you got a big day planned of mowing the yard. So thank you, Bob. Talk soon. Cheers. Later.